I Want to Jump Like Dee Dee, with me, Giles Sibbald, is the music podcast that does music a bit differently. I'm talking to some incredible musicians, DJs and producers about how they use an experimental mindset to fuel their own creativity, pursue new challenges, overcome fears, bounce back from mistakes. My guest today is the amazing singer of a band that is kind of like in this exciting renegade maelstrom that's happening in Austin, Texas. Böndbreakr are crossing over musical influences and styles, bringing together, sort of punk rock, metal, thrash, hardcore with a sort of dash of psychedelia in there. And a lot of commentary that addresses the pain and grief that, society inflicts, in particular on the lives of Black, Indigenous and people of colour communities. So I'm really delighted that Hurricane G, Gerilyn Hayes, is with us today. And I'm super excited to talk to her about how she's using her mindset for living a life and making a difference to those around her, and a ton of more stuff that we'll just kind of get into. So Gerilyn, welcome, and thank you so much for coming on today on the back of a pretty intense few days.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Not at all.
It has been super intense.
Yeah. I mean, we were just before we started recording. You've had like sort of three kind of like intense nights of gig playing, which getting back to playing gigs is kind of great, right?
It was pretty great, yeah. So the first night was probably one of the most amazing gigs of my life.
Wow.
We lended direct support to HR from the Bad Brains.
Wow.
And yeah, he came in with a full reggae band.
Yeah.
And it was probably, I don't know, the air was electric. Everybody was very happy and in a very positive mindset. And just seeing him like in the venue, kind of like relaxing and being himself was just enough for me. But then he looked at me and he waved at me and I died.
Oh my God.
I died. I was like, oh my God, he's
Did that really
right
happen?
here. So was that. The next night we played at Independence Brewery here in Austin, and that was really great. Played in the Texas heat, so you can imagine how fun that was.
Yeah.
We got a lot of free beer, which was awesome. And last night, the third gig was in Belton, Texas, this tiny town, which definitely could be considered Trump country, but there are good people out there.
Yeah.
We were very surprised by the turnout and the generosity of spirit. And just a lot of creative minds, different perspectives in the room. We got to share in all of that. And yeah, it's been an amazing run this weekend.
So did that, kind of like were you sort of going into kind of territory that's perhaps, where you're not sure what to kind of expect when you get that sort of reaction? I mean, it must be, incredibly, well, obviously sort of very positive, but kind of like sort of affirming that there's the sort of pockets of, both sort of creativity and also, kind of like understanding and very kind of receptive to what you're doing as well.
Yeah, I would have to say so. It's kind of a relief. The way that the way that North America talks about politics is kind of like, it's overzealous. It's really intense. And so the ideas and projection seem so divisive. So when we do go to these small Texas towns, you do have this kind of lead in your mind, like, okay, I'm going to this place where my songs might rub people the wrong way, but I'm still going to do them. And if we need to pack up and leave immediately, we know how to do that. But it's a relief to get a chance to talk to people in the room, learn about their life there in that town, learn about their perspectives. I mean, there are people that we've met that don't necessarily lean a certain way, but they have a lot of ideas and they just don't have a place to put them. And so what we do, I'm trying to get them to feel comfortable putting their their thoughts and their identities in our sound.
Mm,
Just letting them know it's okay. Like if you're here and you feel like nobody can understand you or your perspective is that of the outlier,
mm,
there are people that are here for you and there's a
mm.
soundtrack for you.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny, isn't it? But like when you can get to talk to somebody, you know, just sort of one on one or in a sort of small group, how you know, kind of like actually sort of powerful. And I guess we sort of it seems so sort of obvious, but you know, given that you know so much of our communication is sort of through you know kind of sound bites on you know that are written from your computer, you know, whether it's you know kind of through Twitter or whatever. You sort of miss that sort of human connection, but when you actually do get to talk to somebody, you can start that rapport.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't always work, but at least you can start to, you know, in some cases, start to see, okay, well, there's perhaps some ways that we can meet.
Yeah, and that's what's so wonderful. You know, I think the pandemic, and not that it's over,
Mm,
but when it first started, I think people were starting to feel this sense of, what am I going to do if I can't see your face? That to me, that to me was very odd. And I
mm,
didn't really understand it until I started talking to people again, you know, years after things kind of like became a little bit more lax with the
mm,
mask mandates, especially here in Texas.
mm,
So, depending on where we are, we wear our masks. Um, and when we are in settings where we have, you know, a club and we have to work, we don't wear them because we do have to talk with people. It's just a
yeah,
part of the job. That's the nature of it.
yeah,
And when I finally like felt comfortable enough to do that and I began talking with people again, I remembered what it was like to
yeah,
just really have that genuine connection with another
yeah,
human being. And
mm,
yeah, it does feel a bit superficial when we are all texting each other, we're all on Zoom or
mm,
whatever the platform may be,
yeah,
and we kind of we think that we're socializing, but we're actually in our own echo chambers.
yeah,
And it's really it's challenging to challenge yourself to think outside of them when you're not talking to people in person.
mm,
Um, so that's something that I learned is that even though I consider myself an extroverted introvert, I realize that I need other people. I
yeah,
really do. And I think that was for as much as the pandemic took away, it gave
mm,
me that sense of needing a community. And
mm.
then when it was time to get back out there, the community was there.
Interesting. You mentioned about the that sort of extroverted introvert, because like like when I was a kid, um, I you know kind of growing up. I mean I was extremely shy, and you know, and I've still got that, and I'm still an introvert, and you know there are still like a lot of sort of situations that I go into where I think, oh, I'd rather not be here. Just sort of feels uncomfortable, you know, because there's like a group of people in the room that I don't know. I just don't want to do it. But like over my life, I've kind of learned to live with it and to kind of like adapt. I guess adapt. I mean, what was the you know what was your kind of like journey with it with the your kind of characteristics?
Yes. So I've always been a writer. I
Mm,
would just hang out in my grandma's house when I was a kid, you know, after school,
yeah.
summertime, winter breaks, and just write stories all the time. And that was how I just kind of created my own world. And
Mm,
if I stepped outside of that, it was very uncomfortable, even to make friends in
mm,
school. I had a wonderful group of friends when I first moved to Galveston, but I didn't really get a chance to like hang out with them after school or get
Yeah.
to know them outside of that educational academic environment. So
Mm.
I really was just kind of on my own in my own world all the time.
Yeah.
Then as I became a fan of rock and roll, I started to feel something shift within myself that was saying, "Hey, you can do that. Maybe you should do that." And I was like, "You can't do that. You're insane. You are not you are not a rock star, but maybe one of these days you'll learn how to play guitar." So I just kind of left that on the back burner for years.
Oh,
Um,
those inner voices talking to you. Yeah.
so
Mm.
loudly,
Yeah.
aggressively sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a moment that I'll never forget, and it was in college. I went to Texas State
Mm.
in 2001. So this was 2002, and there's this young man who I was having a conversation with, and I just told him I was like, I I'm so nervous to meet people. Like I don't know how to talk to people. I feel like I'll say the wrong thing or I'll misrepresent myself. And
Yeah.
he said to me the most profound thing ever. He said, "You know, G, most people are just nice and they want a simple life just like you. And
Mm.
that's really all there is to it." And I was like, whoa. And my
Yeah.
brain exploded. And that's truly when the extroversion became a thing for me. I started going to parties. I started talking to musicians that I admired
Mm.
locally and just telling them straight up, like, I really like what you're doing. How are you
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah.
And the more I did that, I wanted to become a music journalist. So I was talking to musicians regularly, professionally. Um, and then coming back home, kind of getting back into my cocoon and
Mm.
relaxing because I realized that even though I enjoy meeting people and being social, it takes a lot of energy, a
Energy.
lot of energy. You need to
Yeah.
recharge. So that's where I have to strike that balance of,
Mm.
being extroverted, being social versus being introverted, introspective, and really kind of grounding myself again because other people's energy does influence you, whether we want to
Yeah.
accept that or not. Um,
Mm. Mm.
but yeah, that's where it started. That's how it's going.
And like when you were when you were sort of growing up and the sort of the people that you know sort of gravitated towards as for for kind of friendships and relationships and things like that. How did that work for you?
I think um, inside of me, there will always be the little kid that's in the cafeteria alone in the corner. Like
Mm.
that's just who I am. So the people that
Yeah.
I gravitate towards are usually people like that.
Like that.
And that's
Yeah.
how I end up developing very strong friendships. It's because people who are not immediately pounced upon or
Mm.
looked at for whatever, like maybe their star isn't shining as brightly as others. I think that we tend to understand something deeper and richer
Mm.
within each other, and we want to unearth what's there. So
Mm.
those are, the types of people I am naturally drawn to because
Yeah.
I want to believe that I possess that quality.
Mm. I remember that my when I was these sort of like formative influences, things that happen, and kind of like 40 years later, remember, still remember. It still sticks with. It's weird, isn't it? I remember,
Mhm.
um, and because I sort of wondered why sometimes I have over the years let friendships go. People who kind of matter to me, and then I kind of let them go. And I realized that I remember there was a um, something happened when I was about, I think it was about 8 or 9 years old. And sort of cut a long story short, basically, like a friend of mine, sort of basically kind of went and said to his mum that I told him to fuck off, right? And I hadn't, because I'm a nice lad, and all that. Anyway, it was because I wanted to go in. We'd been playing outside. I wanted to go inside, and then as soon as he was like, "Oh," anyway, so his mum went across and told my dad this. My dad believed them and not me, and grounded me for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember that, and I think that is, and I think how it's affected me is like I've got issues sometimes of trust and that kind of bond that a friendship should have, and if I feel that it's sort of perhaps being broken, I let it go sort of easily. It's weird, these sort of like influences, how they stay with you and kind of just when you're at that sort of age and form your kind of character.
Yeah. Sounds like you're a Böndbreakr.
Indeed, exactly. I should have had my
Yeah, no,
T-shirt
I
on saying
understand.
it all, shouldn't I?
Yes, I mean, y those types of experiences, they really do form you, like you say, and
Mm,
it's, I am doing work to nurture and soothe my inner child. I'm, like, working with a
mm,
trained professional, a counselor, who's
yeah,
helping me understand that just because we are adults, it doesn't mean that we still don't feel those little people
yeah,
feelings, those little
yeah,
kid feelings. They're
yeah.
very, very real. And the way that they manifest themselves sometimes, it might seem like you're being irrational, or that you could, you know, do this a little bit more, maybe lean into your friendships a
Mm,
little bit more, your
mm,
relationships a little bit more. But there's always the little kid part that's like, well, I don't know, and I don't know what anybody's gonna think about it. Um, so I'm working on that myself personally. I love that little kid part of me. I remember her very well, and I want to take care of her the way that a big sister would have taken care of me.
yeah.
So I'm working on that.
Oh,
I feel
interesting.
you. I really feel you on that.
How long have you been working on that, if you don't mind me asking that?
So it's relatively recent.
Yeah.
I started talking with a professional for, I think it's been about 4 weeks now, but I have
Okay.
been working with, counselors in the
Yeah.
past just because it's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
So this particular professional, her specialty is inner child work, that sort of thing. She has all these, brilliant, amazing degrees, and
Yeah.
she's, in my opinion, she is a genius. She is an ancestor on earth. Like, I haven't told her that, but that's how I feel about her.
Yeah.
Um, and she just, what she told me yesterday, actually. She said, "Stop shitting all over yourself."
Mm,
And the reason why is because should is the same thing as shame, which is
mm.
the cousin to blame.
Interesting.
And a lot of my language, my inner dialogue, inner monologue has
Mm,
been like, I should reach out to this person and connect with them,
mm.
but I don't know if they'll actually receive what I'm trying to give to
Yeah.
them. So she listened to the language I was using and said, instead of using should, just say, I want to reach out to this person,
Mm,
and I hope that they receive what I want to give to them. So eliminate the should, eliminate
mm.
the but, and just reframe the way that you're thinking about your challenge. And
Right.
it's giving the kid permission to be free in their desire to grow and to learn. And I mean, after 4 weeks, I sound like some kind of a self-help guru, but I mean,
Yeah.
it changed my perspective, and it changed how I communicate with people.
Because I guess as a as a kid, you know, when you first start to interact with, you know, another human, you you know, you're kind of full of curiosity. You know, the bravery almost is there. It's like, you know, there's no fear. You
Yeah,
can kind
no
of talk, and
filters.
no
Mhm.
filters or anything like that. You're kind of going to that, and you feel that you know, then you can go to school, and then the regimented sort of schooling system, you know, the very narrow-minded schooling system, um, you know, kind of drives that out of you. Certainly curiosity, because it's all about, you know, kind of doing this and doing these exams and following the curriculum, and the curriculum is very narrow and all this
Mhm.
sort of stuff. You know, and it's, you see, I often think of that, you know, back to a kind of child and the kind of curiosity. But it's interesting on that, on the words that, you know, that you use and that your counselor has sort of picked up. That's interesting.
Mhm.
I did. I remember last year, about 18 months ago, I did um, a sort of session for an arts lab that I'm involved with, which was a stream of consciousness writing,
That's
which was,
wonderful.
wow. I was like, oh my god, you know, and I did it as best as I could, but the what I was writing and the free form coming out, same kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like this energy flow, and it
Yeah.
just comes out, and you're like, "I didn't know that was inside of me. What happened?"
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's super cool. It's super cool. I'm really glad that, you have experienced that.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's, I think it's really helpful to, you know, for you to sort of start to, you know, kind of understand where you're at.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really happy that you're doing that as well, and you're kind of like starting to learn about these things, and things as important as language as well. You know, just like the language that we use, how important and kind of like impactful it can be. You know,
Mhm.
in how we live our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, another thing that I am, excuse me, trying to like understand and resolve within myself is my identity as an African American
Mm,
woman.
mm,
And so, one of the things that I am concentrating on within myself is understanding that my pride is inherent. Like, I cannot be anything but proud of who I am and where I come
yeah,
from.
yeah.
So, what happens in addition to going into this educational space as a child, you're not only learning about, you're not learning, you're not only learning like English, literature, arithmetic, sciences, you're also learning social sciences
Mm,
that are colored by your skin tone in
mm,
America.
mm,
And a lot of that information is actually stripped. We have no idea truly what has happened in the past
mm,
unless our family members tell us, and thank goodness mine did.
mm,
But you have to reconcile the fact that not only do you have strictures in place as a kid, you also have strictures in place because you are a Black kid,
mm,
you are a Black girl. There are things you will never do. And you have to learn that right now.
mm,
Your white male and white female counterparts, they will do everything that
mm.
you want to do. So just
Yeah.
understand that you don't actually have that much agency.
Mm,
And also make sure that you get straight A's on your report card.
yeah.
So there are things that I still am very frustrated by because I grew up with the song. It's Tupac who was like, "There's never going to be a Black president."
Yeah.
We grow up with messages like that, and Tupac, the poet, the genius that he is, was speaking from a place of deep, deep hurt that I share. I still feel that, even though we did have a Black president at one point, it
Yeah.
feels like that legacy is so far away, just
Mm.
so painfully far away. And the things that are happening now, especially here in Texas, kind of open the door for other bigotry and oppression
Mm.
because of old, ridiculous, sickening ideas.
Yeah.
These are things that start in the minds of Black children, and it's horrific. And not only am I telling little kid G, it's okay to be yourself, I'm also telling her, be as big and as Black as you want to be at
Yeah.
all times. Don't be afraid of it. Lean
Mm.
into it, because it's you. And everybody wants to see that, no
Yeah.
matter what the other forces are saying.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, my partner's going through sort of similar, kind of experiences of when she was a kid, sort of growing up. She's been seeing a counselor, and obviously, I can't say sort of too much, but very, very sort of, kind of similar issues that in fact, when she went to a counselor, it wasn't actually for this, for the, sort of racism that she suffered, but you just, from talking, started to uncover, well, actually, you're getting down to the root cause. This is what it is. Back in the, in the UK in the, kind of 70s.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm in these spaces of punk and metal, and
Mm.
I'm walking in as a Black woman, and a lot of people, they come up to me and they're very much like, hey, that's so cool what you've done. I love your stage performance. I love this. And I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, of course, thank you. That's great. But I'm also thinking, how else am I supposed to show up in this space? Am I
Yeah.
supposed to shirk in the corner? Because to me, if I do that, I'm open to attack.
Yeah.
So I'm going to walk into the room as myself, and I'm going to look all of you in the eye, because
Mm.
I want you to understand that I am here and that
Yeah.
I am real. I'm not a talking point. And the people that are with me, they also know that about me. I just
Mm.
need for you to know that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to hurt you. I'm not here for that, but I am here to give you a message. Um, and I know in those spaces, racism abounds.
Mm.
I'm not, my eyes aren't closed to that reality.
Mm.
These are genres that are predominantly white, cis, heterosexual men. Like,
Yeah.
I get it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that they aren't able to learn.
To learn. Yeah.
It's if they are willing to learn, and if they are willing to challenge their behaviors and perspectives, and if they are willing to not just educate themselves, but take action to be
Mm.
better.
Mm.
And I will continue showing up, because they need to be shaken up. Their perspectives just need to be shaken up.
When you sort of first joined bands, um, and kind of like sort of going into those spaces, how did you, how did you feel sort of first of all, and as you, how has that sort of changed over the years as you've done more and more performances?
I felt like a shaking bag of marbles. Like,
Mm.
everything in my body was just unsettled and unnerved.
Mm.
I did my best to, put on a strong, unfazed
Yeah.
face, just be cool. But really, I was just,
Yeah.
it was a tumultuous inner experience, because I'm not used to being looked at by this many people.
Yeah.
And these are people that look nothing like me. I am
Mm.
used to being one of a handful of Black people in the room, but I'm usually not the person doing the work in the room.
Yeah. And kind of
So,
being the focus and being sort of stared at as
yeah,
the focal point. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
exactly. I'm used to being stared at in the grocery store,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
not like on stage.
On stage.
So, it was, at first, it was very it was uncomfortable, but the more I did it, the more fun it became. And then I felt like it was a more malleable experience for me because I was like,
Mm,
oh, well, I'm not so nervous or afraid to give you pieces of myself. What would happen if I gave you everything? And that's how Böndbreakr really started to form, in my
mm,
opinion, was when I finally just kind of let that barrier within myself go and
right.
just say like, nobody here really gives a shit if you're
Mm,
black or not, which is another problem. They definitely should, but they really don't. They're there for
mm,
the music. So if you want them to care about your blackness and about your femalehood, you need to say it. And
mm,
that's when I started writing songs that were very much focused on the black experience, songs that were talking about women, people that identify as women or
yeah.
women adjacent,
Mm,
people that identify as humans who do not fall on the binary.
mm,
And I felt like if you if I don't tell you to look at me as a black woman, you never will.
yeah.
You'll never see me. So, those early days, it just wasn't my focus. My focus was to get up there and have a really good time and like punk rock it out.
Yeah.
And you know, the more I started performing, the more I realized that I wasn't being seen for who I was. And so
Mm,
these later days, I'm like, you can see me now, or at least I hope you can,
mm,
because you're going to see more and more and more blackness all the time. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how it morphed.
How important to you is your, kind of like sort of physical environment, the place that you live, the places that you kind of hang out, in terms of, um, kind of keeping your resilience, or just keeping your resilience, but also, kind of, nurturing your creativity as well. But both like your
Yeah.
physical as well as your friends, and kind of people that you associate with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important because, I mean, if you don't like where you are, you're probably going to write some really weird
Really,
things that you might
yes.
not want to share with people. And if you do share them with people, like it might be time to talk to a counselor and not your buddy. Um, but it's very important. I I think the thing that is more important than the physical surrounding, like your actual environment,
Mm,
but not more important than your friends and your family, would be the practice of experiencing silence. And I think that that's the most important thing that you can do for yourself as a human being and also as an artist. And I learned this, let me preface it by saying that I learned this by watching a documentary about King Crimson.
mm,
And there was a segment where they were talking with Robert Fripp,
yeah.
who just is magnificent. And he so eloquently said to, and I'm paraphrasing, but you have to be with the silence in order to hear the music.
Mm,
And that it shot right through me.
mm,
And I didn't realize that I wasn't experiencing silence. Our music is heavy, our music is intense. It's got so many big, big plays in it.
yeah.
Um, that I thought that that's really what we needed. So I would just sit here at this desk and write, 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 write. Or I'd just sit and try to think of like different riffs that I could give to Kieran to play on the guitar, think of different drum beats for Patrick, think of some
Yeah.
bass lines for Thad. And it just didn't come. It just didn't make sense. It was very
Mm,
much, it felt like a put on. And I stopped because I was like, well, this is trash. I don't even believe it. Nobody else is
mm,
going to believe it. So there was just a period where I didn't write anything. I thought it was my environment. I thought that I needed to go to our band practice space, sit in there, be by myself and write like I
Yeah.
used to in the early
Mm.
days. But it was what I missed. What was missing was silence. That's it.
Wow.
After he said that, after we watched that documentary, I took that lesson and I've been trying my best to practice it because I just wrote I just wrote 3 songs out of nowhere. I was just laying in bed and 3 things just started kind of coming at me.
Wow.
I wasn't listening to anything. I wasn't watching YouTube. I wasn't playing games on my phone. I was just sitting there, just laying there in bed, and they just came. They just came. They just washed over me. And I was like, all right, time to write. And just wrote everything down. I grabbed my voice recorder and I hummed out the melodies. I got the riffs. I got the drum beat. I got the bass lines. I got everything. Fully fleshed out songs. We are going to be working on and sharpening, fine tuning the very first one that I wrote, probably this week and next. We're also going to take a bit of a writing break. So, not going to gig for about a month. And
Yeah.
we're going to sit there and make these songs, turn my little babies into people. So, silence is more important than environment, in my opinion.
That's really that's really interesting. I read. I guess it's like the concept of, in a way, of sort of mindfulness of just doing one thing. I remember reading The Art of Power by Thich Nhat Hanh. It was about, I think he wrote it about 2005, maybe something like that. And there was always one part that sort of stuck with me, which is about, that we tend to do so many things at once. You have the radio on, you have the TV on, you're reading something online, you're having a drink, doing all those. You can't possibly sort of enjoy them or get the most out of them. It's like, sit, and when you have your cup of tea, just do that, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that when you were saying about the silence, that kind of struck me as that's the way to kind of like have your real power, just to be there in the moment, and then the creativity comes.
Mm-hmm. It's all
It's
there.
fascinating. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. It's cool.
That's really exciting to kind of think of that's the power to the power to kind of unleash, to sort of bring it out. With you are also, as we were just sort of saying before, you mentioned that you started working for TikTok as
Mhm.
well, and that's in, if I'm not mistaken, sort of digital marketing design, that in that sort of area.
A little. So I before I began working for TikTok, I had my own company called Coding Copywriter. I
Yeah.
still have it kind of like as it's more consultant based, consultative.
Mm.
Yeah, whatever. That's a crazy word.
Yeah.
But I do consults with people who are owners of their own small business or they are
Mm.
creative professionals like myself, that sort of thing. In that, the reason why I did it, the reason why I opened that business was because I was in a position where I knew that I wasn't going to hold on to some contract work that I had.
Yeah.
And during that time, uh, Führer Trump was in office,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
I did not want to be an unemployment job statistic of his.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want that on me. So
Yeah.
I'm going to open my own business, which is why I opened Coding Copywriter.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned how to build instructional, like e-learning modules.
Okay.
So taking all these really cool, like, well, not cool, but taking like HR concepts or sales concepts and sales pitches and putting them into e-learning modules so that
Got you.
people can be trained up and like understand their role even better.
Mm,
And it's got web design, copywriting,
mm.
um, a little bit of HTML, CSS, a little JavaScript. Like I get to do all that super fun, like, geeky, techie stuff. And I do that for TikTok now, which is not so because I love TikTok so much. And I have a timer on my phone that's like, Gerilyn, you've been watching TikTok too long. So I'm like, okay, all right, you have to get back to reality. You have to cook yourself and your husband some food, like get it together, stop scrolling. Um, but I love the company. It's incredible. The team that I
Mm.
work with, they concentrate on nurturing relationships with small to medium sized businesses, and
Yeah.
they're all just really good people.
Mm. What do you feel the future and the kind of the sort of the role of sort of corporates in the kind of like in the world? There's I remember that I got involved with this uh, organization or movement in Europe, and it was called democratizing work. And it's basically its sort of principle was that the sort of big corporations just do not serve the interests of the community, of their employees, basically, and sort of employees of terms. They have no say in the running of the company. And it was interesting because it was uh, a pretty big group of female professors and sort of teachers at various sort of institutions around Europe. And the idea basically is to sort of give some control back to employees, as a way of, that this is kind of like the word democracy, I guess, has sort of become bastardized, hasn't it?
It
It
has.
doesn't really have its true meaning now. Um, and
Hmm.
and this is a way of kind of giving some control back to employees. I'm just kind of like just interested in sort of discussion on how you see from working within within a corporate. I guess it's not maybe not been too long, but how you see their role to um, kind of like improve the lives of communities where so many huge ones have pretty much destroyed them.
That's such a great question. And I've had to reconcile this within myself for years.
Mm,
Um, Especially with the genre of music that I play and write for.
yeah.
Um, so I think the way that I kind of process it all, pardon me, coffee break. Thank you. That's my
Much
hubby,
needed,
Kieran.
much needed.
So sweet. But no, so punk rock is like the anti-capitalist, anti-corporation ethos. Like I totally get that. At the same
Mm,
time, housing is an issue, food is an issue, like life is an issue,
yeah,
especially in my opinion, especially in America. We are so capitalistic. Like we are trapped in this system and we have to figure out how to help ourselves within this machine.
mm,
Um, so the way that I think about my the jobs that I've had in the past and the one that I have currently is that I'm thoroughly enjoying what I do. It is helping me on a personal level.
yeah,
It's helping like what I'm doing, the vision of this company that I'm in is important to me because we do get to help the small business owner get in
yeah,
front of millions of people
yeah,
depending on who they're trying to reach, what they're trying to, shop to people. We do get to help the little people. And I am a little people, so
yeah,
that matters to me.
mm,
And the medium sized businesses, of course, they also need assistance as well. They need to get out in front of people. And I think that with social media and entertainment companies, there are ways to use those to your advantage as an
Yeah.
individual. And instead of looking at these things as a means to showcase all of the good stuff,
Mm.
it's a tool. It's just a device.
Yeah.
So what you are selling is not necessarily an image or a lifestyle. You're using the platforms as a tool.
Yeah.
If you are able to understand how to wield that tool, how to sharpen that blade, you will win. And I say win because in America, everything is a fucking fight. Everything.
Everything.
We can't even have like, we can't go to the doctor because we'll
Mm.
get charged $1,000 to see
Yeah.
someone to tell us why we hurt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Mm.
horrible. You know, when I was running my company, I I wanted healthcare, and it was going to cost me, I believe, anywhere between $600 to $1,200 for just myself. And I'm like, I don't make that much money. I'm building websites for people. I'm making
Yeah.
graphic designs, and also I want to work with small people, you know, small businesses.
Yeah.
And I know that they have budgets, but that to me seems exorbitant. So anyway, long story short, I live in a capitalist society. I'm not ignorant to that.
Mm.
And I also have the free will, the agency, and the right to say, even though I'm within the system, I do oppose it. I do oppose it.
Yeah.
It can be better. And like you're talking about the organization to help the workers have a more democratized system and experience and existence. I
Yeah.
think that's important. Um, People are actively shut down, fired for it. You know, I guess it's like kind of like unions here,
Yeah.
um, where people get together so that they do have better and
Yeah.
better
Better voices.
working environments,
Yeah.
benefits, all that. And like people shut them down.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just it just always feels so, it feels like hypocrisy, but I also do think that there is no ethical consumption in a capitalistic society. I do believe
Mm.
that, and that really sucks.
Yeah.
I think you know, I don't know what to do other than leave this country and go to another one, but then it's like they probably have their own set of issues too. So
You're
I
absolutely
think as
right.
long as
Yeah.
you're, yeah, as long as you're happy with yourself and like what you, if you can go to sleep at night knowing that you have done your best, that's really all you can do. We
It's
can't save
interesting.
the world.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that, I mean, you know, I kind of worked in corporates, and I totally hear you. And I had the, you know, the same kind of things, you know, trying to reconcile, you know, ultimately what was my, you know, kind of inner, not even inner, just political beliefs, you know, and the way that, you know, I believe that society should exist, which is, you know, much more of a sort of socialist, you know,
Hmm.
way of living. And I think you're right. I'm working for a, you know, kind of capitalist. I'm working for a capitalist company here, and
Hmm.
you know, I kind of live with it because I was doing some things in the company that I believed were, you know, were making a difference. I was trying to, you know, sort of and actually sort of make change from within, however small that may be, you know, and I was doing that, but ultimately, and I guess perhaps this is just a kind of symptom of my changing identity, and just my life changing, and you know, getting older, that ultimately I couldn't reconcile the two any longer, and
Hmm.
I had to. It wasn't the only reason, but that was sort of one of the things that I was really starting to struggle with. It was really playing on my mind so much. But you're right. I totally hear you. And it's almost like I remember reading, been reading, you know, quite a bit of Noam Chomsky's, you know, work on anarchism, and it, you know, he's very sort of practical, that like you said, you can't change it. You know, it's not going to change overnight. It's this huge kind of thing that's been with us for centuries.
Right.
You go from America,
Yeah.
you go to the UK, you go to Germany, you go to France. The same. It's the same.
Right. And I
Mm.
mean, it's a shame because we're still debating these things and we still
Mm.
go to work. we
Yeah.
still we still provide for ourselves and we still donate to the causes that matter the most to us. And I don't know, I just wish that we could be free,
I
all of
guess I
us.
get. I mean, I guess what it does. I'm just sort of thinking about it, you know, your hesitate to use the word, but so, you know, kind of development. It's not the right word, but you know, seeing things from another perspective, from within a kind of corporation, seeing things from without. Actually, what it does give you, perhaps, is this sort of, you know, an extra dimension on, you know, kind of worldview. Sort of this, you know, idea of sort of seeing things from other people's perspectives as well, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, TikTok is a Chinese company,
Mm,
and I've never worked with a non-American company, I guess.
okay.
So I'm fascinated by their work culture, which is extremely efficient and
Mm,
very fast paced.
mm,
It's something that I admire because that's what I want to be as a musician. I would like to be prolific and fast moving, but efficient
yeah.
and effective.
Mm,
Um, but also learning how different powers impact that company because they are in China is fascinating to me. A lot
mm,
of what I have learned, um, is proprietary, but to see this company be as successful as it is and actually helping like small creators become stars in a matter of months, sometimes weeks,
mm,
sometimes hours. I find that fascinating. Another thing that I find fascinating about TikTok is their ability to just give the people this tool. People from around the world take it and show us their day.
yeah.
Whenever the war broke out in Ukraine,
Mm,
there were live videos, and I that's why I set the timer because I had to get off of TikTok. I was watching live footage of the air raids,
mm,
hearing the actual sirens
wow.
because people were in their homes on TikTok walking around.
Showing this.
Like, oh, there's another air raid. I'm gonna go in here. I have to go into this shelter now. TikTok is a tool that is actually doing what it's supposed to do, and it is showing you what is happening in this world. And it is opening you up to very, very different perspectives.
Yeah.
Um, there's conservatives on there who are vocal, um, who attempt to challenge through sound bites and very
Mm,
strange quote unquote insights. There are liberal TikTokers who have discussions and like have live debates with conservatives on TikTok. So, in my opinion, this tool that is built by the capitalist machine that is running so efficiently is doing something that other companies don't. And it really is bridging divides.
mm,
Now, some of those divides will just be permanently fractured. Like there are things that will never be, no, not everyone will always see eye to eye. That's just the
yeah.
reality of humans.
Yeah.
But to pick up your phone and look at what's happening in Palestine right now, if they could,
Yeah.
Ukraine right now, if they have the ability, anywhere in the world, I think that that's something to be considered. Whether you like the platform or not, it's very powerful and I think it's necessary,
Mm,
especially when we have like our media, which is basically propaganda, telling us how
yeah.
to think and feel. So it kind of goes back to that original point where we were talking about looking at people and talking to them in person.
Yeah.
We kind of can't do that right now. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's a tool that helps us kind of like feel that togetherness
Mm.
in a way that like IM chat and DMs can't necessarily do.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of thinking of it, actually. In the sort of comparison to, like you say, to sort of the kind of the mainstream media propaganda that's sort of pumped out, and it's the same here as well. It's
Hmm.
just end up sort of stop reading it and stop watching it. But
Hmm.
I think filtering out the stuff that's trying to that's deliberately trolling is kind of hard. But what you get, I
Hmm.
guess, with TikTok is it's image, and video and sort of visual content, isn't it?
Hmm.
So you have more, I would say, insight into kind of people's lives, and to what they really think, I guess, as opposed to sort of
Hmm.
Twitter, like you said, when you talk about kind of IMs and Twitter, and it's just text based, say anything. But this
Right.
is, it's
It's as real as
as
technology
it as
could
it as it
possibly
as it
get,
can be. Yeah,
as it
yeah,
can be. Yeah, because I mean, if you just want to escape, you can type in Switzerland, and there are creators that are in the mountains just
yeah.
walking around, and you can go on a little hike with them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't really have any conflicts about that,
Mm,
like
yeah.
that professional part of my life. I think
Mm,
it's a necessity at this point in my
absolutely.
journey.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's helping our band, to get where we would like to go. I mean,
I think that you're right. There is that kind of pragmatism, isn't there? That
mhm,
that we have to have in our lives. And
mhm.
I remember talking to I had to the British band. You may have heard of them, Big Joni. I'm not sure if
Oh
you've.
yeah,
Yeah, Big
they're
Joni. Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, they're great. And I was talking to Shardine, Shardine, the drummer, and she's fantastic. I did an interview with her for a magazine that I'm involved with. She's really fantastic, and she's saying, that they have a, her opinion on corporates, is pretty much as we've been sort of discussing, around the kind of the way that they sort of behave, with communities and society. But they have to have a very pragmatic approach as a band, because they have to use, kind of like, Fender guitars, for example. So there is a balance but it's that practical, sensible approach that you have to take when either you're in a band or you're living your kind of own life,
Mhm.
and reconciling those and being kind of comfortable with them. That's ultimately what you want to get, isn't it?
Yeah. Nobody tells you these things when you're growing up.
They don't, do they? They don't. It's
No,
like
no.
where to put the plus sign, where to put the minus sign, where to put the dividing. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Like,
well, the other, I mean, the other thing is around, kind of like it, which I'm a massive believer in, is around emotional intelligence. Why that isn't taught in schools from bang early age.
yeah.
About how to be empathetic towards people. Just don't teach
Mhm.
this sort of shit.
No, they don't. And I could have benefited from it. Oh my gosh. Ugh. Ugh.
I know. I know.
Oh, there are so many things like that. Not anymore, but like, you know how it is. You reflect and you're like, wow, I was an asshole. Oh my God. I was terrible to my ex. I was terrible to a friend. I was, and you're just like kind of, yeah, emotional intelligence. Get that IQ up on a report card. Come on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
G,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Thank you so much, G, for coming on.
Thank you for
I could,
having me.
Thanks for listening to the show, and I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune in for the next episode.
In the meantime, it would be really awesome if you could rate and review the show, and also share it with any friends who you think might enjoy it.